we have 8 controversial questions, right? So, n number of students have actually shared their marks with us using different tools such as ConvertIS and other tools. Okay, so if you can see a mark regarding the student here, you can see that the lowest marks that she or she got was 105 here, and the highest marks was 121. Now, why is there a difference in the answer keys? Why is there a significant difference in the answer keys of academies here? As you can see, the lowest marks was 105 and the highest was 125. So there is a difference of around 16 marks that actually translates to around 7 questions. Now, why is there such difference, right? It's because there are around 8 to 9 controversial questions in the CS paper. And this session is all about deciphering and surgically analyzing the correct and the most accurate answer to these 8 controversial questions. So, also, want to tell you an interesting tool that was brought up by UPSC this year. This is the UPSC representation tool. As you can see here, this is a UPSC representation tool or an online question paper representation tool. You can actually log into this representation tool and tell your queries, tell your mistakes, or even, if you feel that this question requires multiple interpretations, or in this question you feel that the answer is C, and you send them the correct logic to that, you send them the correct sources, UPSC might change that source. Okay, so this is a representation portal where you can send in your grievances, send in your queries, and also discuss some of the questions that require multiple interpretations and multiple logics for UPSC to get better understanding and receive, share their official final key. So this is actually good initiative by UPSC, which would allow them to drop the questions and also produce better official key as in compared to the previous year. Okay, so let's dive deeply into the controversial questions. Now, the first question is regard to the INSTC. So what does the question say? India is one of the founding members of International North-South Corridor, a multilateral corridor which will connect, right? Which will connect. Now, what is the doubt here? What is the doubt here? The doubt here is that not regarding B or C. We know that it doesn't pass through China and this doesn't have any relation with Southeast Asia. But then what is the doubt? The doubt is between A and D, right? Now, does INSTC connect India to Central Asia, or does INSTC pass through Central Asia? Now, what did the first option say here? INSTC will connect India to Central Asia. It will connect India to Central Asia. Then it will connect Europe, right? So what does it say? It should connect India to the Central Asia. And from Central Asia, there should be a connection with, Europe. Okay. Now, what does option D says? It will connect India to Europe through Azerbaijan, right? Let's dive deeply into first option because that is one option that most of you have given. Now, does INSTC connect India to Central Asia? And is there a connection between Central Asia to Europe? Now, UPSC have given the word to here. UPSC did not say the word and, right? If UPSC would have given and, there not be a connection between Central Asia to Europe, right? India to Central Asia and Europe would have been correct. But then UPSC have given the word to, therefore, there should be a connection between Central Asia to Europe, right? Everyone got it? Now, first of all, this is a route, right? You can see here, it's connecting India to Iran to Central Asia, then it goes to Europe, Eurasia as well. So, India, Iran, Azerbaijan, then to Europe. But then, let me tell you, is there any connection of INSTC with Central Asian countries? Now, is there any connection with Central Asian countries? Of course, it will connect Central Asian countries because from Iran, we can actually connect to different countries here. But then, is there an actual connection for INSTC with Central Asia? Does it pass through Central Asia or it does to connect through Central Asia? Let me tell you, what are the Central Asian countries first of all? Central Asian countries are Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. And where does through the INSTC pass through? It only pass through Iran and Azerbaijan. So does it connect the Central Asian countries? And is there a connect between Central Asian countries to Europe as well? No. Okay. So if UPSC would have given, it would connect India to Central Asia and Europe, it would have been more correct, right? But then what did UPSC give? UPSC have given India to Central Asia to Europe. There is no connection between Central Asia to Europe, right? It passes through Russia, then Russia to Europe. So let me tell you, the correct answer for that question is not A, but then should be D. Now, why is D the answer? It is definitely correct, right? Because India to Azerbaijan, then to Europe. So D is a more crisp, D is more accurate. Therefore, D is the answer. Then why is A incorrect? Because it doesn't have any connection with Central Asia and there is no connection between Central Asia and Europe. That's why A is incorrect and D is the correct answer here. Now, if you actually look into the, an answer given by the External Affairs Minister, you can actually see that the INSTC is a multimodal cost effective from India to Northwestern Europe. It has the potential to enhance India's connectivity to Central Asia. So connectivity to Central Asia is there, but then does it actually go through Central Asia? No, because it moves from Iran to Azerbaijan to Russia, and Central Asian countries does not include Azerbaijan. Okay, so therefore, in the first question, we are 100% sure that D is the answer. Now, moving on to the second one. Now, in this question, consider the following space missions. How many of the space missions given above encourage and support? Now, what does the word encourage and support mean? These are very general words, right? UPSC doesn't say how many of the space missions mainly support gravity research, or UPSC doesn't provide how many of these above research significantly or primarily deals with microgravity. So encourage and support is something that we cannot quantify. It's a very subjective statement, right? So we have to take this in a very broader sense. Okay, if the word was mainly, primarily, or significantly, we would have been very specific. That should have been its main objective. But then, since the word focus on encourage and support, it is a very broader term, and if you can find any relation with SPADX and microgravity, then it should be treated as correct. Now, what does SPADX mean? If you look into the main objective of SPADX, it's regarding the developing and demonstrating technology for randomized docking using small 2 spacecraft, right? It's to control the docked conditions. It has the potential of extending the life of targeted spacecraft, test power between docked spacecraft. So if you look into the main goals of SPADX, there's no relation between microgravity. But let me tell you, why are we actually testing SPADX? It's because of our long-term mission, right? And what is the long-term mission? The long-term mission is the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, right? So India is going to build its own international space station named the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. And in this Antariksh Station, in this international space station that we are going to build, we are going to conduct many tests regarding microgravity, right? So in the long term, why is the SPADX used? The SPADX is used to actually, build our own Bharatiya Antariksh Space Station in the future. So in this space station, in the future, we are going to conduct tests regarding microgravity, right? We are definitely going to conduct tests regarding microgravity. So does this SPADX mission encourage and support microgravity research? Definitely, if you think in the broader sense, it is a mission before the International Space Station that we are going to launch in the future. In the Bharatiya Antariksh Space Station, we are going to conduct multiple experiments regarding microgravity as well. C is the answer here. I mean, all the three should be the answer here. Okay, I hope all of you are correct. Now, regarding the third question. Now, what does the question say here? It was one of the most controversial questions. Different academies have provided different keys here. So there are basically two confusions here. Okay, the first one is with regard to whether limestone is converted into lime during the clinker production or before the clinker production. Okay, the first confusion is that whether limestone is converted to lime during the clinker production or before the clinker production. Okay, so that's the first confusion here. Now the second one here is that silica bearing clay is mixed with limestone while manufacturing cement. Now we don't have a confusion regarding this statement, okay? That statement is actually right. But then, does this mixing of limestone with silicon bearing clay actually leads to carbon dioxide emissions? Right? Actually leads to carbon dioxide emissions. So if it doesn't lead to carbon dioxide emissions, then the answer should be B. If it leads to carbon dioxide emissions, then the answer should be A. Right? So these are the two confusions. First one, whether it takes place during or before the clinker production. And the second one is whether it contributes to carbon dioxide emissions. So let us dive deeply into it. Now first one, let me tell you, the clinker production which is mentioned here is a two-step process. Okay? Is a two-process. Once again. So where was I? Yeah. So the clinker production mentioned here is a two-step production. Okay. The first one is known as calcination and the second one is clinker formation. Okay. So in the calcination process, the limestone is converted into lime. Okay. In the second process, which is the clinker formation, the lime is converted into clinker. Okay. So let me tell you, the clinker production is a two-stage process. The first one is calcination, wherein the limestone is converted into lime. The second one is where the clinker formation, wherein the lime is converted into clinker. So therefore, limestone is converted into lime during the clinker production. Clinker production involves both calcination and clinker formation, right? It's a two-step process. Therefore, the third statement which is mentioned here is correct, because in terms of calcination, what does happen? In terms of calcination, it converts limestone into lime, and in terms of clinker formation, the lime is actually converted into clinker. Okay, so therefore, the third statement is right. Now, the second statement is right here, but then does it lead to carbon dioxide emissions? Is the bigger question, right? Now, can UPSC say that not even 1% of carbon dioxide is not emitted by mixing silica bearing clay with limestone? No. But then let me tell you, is this the reason why more than 5% of global emissions occur from the cement industry? We know that at least 1% or even a 0.1% of pollution would occur because clay is mixed with. But then is the reason for that you have more than 5% of global emissions? Let me tell you, no. Because first of all, the physical mixing, mixing clay bearing clay with limestone does not itself lead to the release of carbon dioxide. But let me tell you, in case of indirectly we are heating, it leads to carbon dioxide emission, right? There's no confusion in that. Indirectly, it leads to carbon dioxide emission. But let me tell you, the silica bearing clay, does not itself contain the carbonates. The silica bearing clay or even the silica does not contain carbonates. Therefore, it does not release CO2 upon heating themselves. Let me tell you, in the overall process, silica needs to be heated, silica and clay needs to be heated. Therefore, there's some kind of carbon dioxide in the long term, in the whole process. But then the silica and clay does not have carbonates and does not itself release carbon dioxide. Therefore, directly, does they lead to carbon dioxide emission? Directly, does they lead to carbon dioxide emission? The answer is no. But then, indirectly, does they lead to carbon dioxide emissions because energy and fuel is needed? Yes. But then, is it the reason for more than 5% of global emissions in the cement industry? Let me tell you, no. So there's no direct relation between silica and carbonates. Therefore, carbon dioxide itself is not released. But then let me tell you, in the whole process, we need to heat silica and clay as well, right? Therefore, carbon dioxide is released. So there's no direct relation, but then indirect relation is there. But then is it the correct explanation for the 5% cement emission in the global industry? Let me tell you, no. Therefore, the correct answer should be B, because this doesn't have direct relation with the carbon dioxide emissions, but then the statement is correct. This statement doesn't definitely lead to carbon dioxide emission. Therefore, the answer should be B. Only one of them explains statement 1. I hope all of you are clear. Now, the fourth one. Now, this is a very subjective statement, let me tell you. Now, what is the confusion here? The confusion is that an ordinance can abridge a fundamental right. Now, if we take in the literal sense or in reality, okay, if we take in the literal sense or reality, just think about it. The president can bring an ordinance, or the union government can bring an ordinance which actually abrogate a fundamental right, right? They can bring an act, they can bring an ordinance, they can bring a bylaw, they can bring anything which actually violates one of the fundamental rights. Then we'll have judicial review, then the Supreme Court will strike it down. Okay, so in literal sense or in practical sense, the president can bring an ordinance which actually violates the fundamental rights. That's true. But let me tell you, how, if we take in the literal sense, what is written in the Constitution? Now, if you look at Article 13, what does Article 13 say? The state shall not make, now what does Article 13 say? The state shall not make any law which takes away or abridge the rights conferred by this part. And what does this part mean? This refers to part 3. And what does part 3 refers to? Part 3 basically refers to the fundamental rights, right? So what does Article 13 say here? The state shall not make any law which takes away or abridge the rights conferred by this part, and any law made in contravention shall this be void, as in it shall be declared unconstitutional. And what does law here mention to? The law here includes any ordinances. So let me tell you, in practicality, in real sense, an ordinance can abridge a fundamental right, but in the literal sense, have anything ever, can you find any document anywhere saying that an ordinance can abridge a fundamental right? No. Can a central act abridge a fundamental right? No. So in practical sense, it may come, or it definitely comes. You have seen a number of laws, declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court because it violates fundamental rights. But then, can ordinance in the literal sense in under Article 13 violate or abridge a fundamental right? No. So let me tell you, the question is very controversial, but then Civilsdaily is going with answer C, because we believe in the literal sense, and we believe that UPSC would go by the article which is Article 13 given in the Constitution. Therefore, UPSC would provide this statement as incorrect. Therefore, C, 1 and 3 will be answered. Now, this is a very controversial question. It is subject to UPSC interpretation. This can be D, 1, 2, 3, and this can be either 1 and C, but then we believe UPSC would go by Article 13. Therefore, we are going with C, 1 and 3 on. Now, what about this question? This is also a controversial question. Academics have given different interpretations. 56 question. So, we have no doubt regarding the first question. First statement, this is definitely wrong. But what about the second one? The union government can take over the total administration of the state under certain circumstances on the recommendation of the governor. Now, you all have read about Schedule 5, right? Schedule 5 doesn't have an article related to this. Now, what does other circumstances mean, or different circumstances mean? Now, different circumstances can be either state emergency, right? It can be either state emergency, it can be national emergency, it can be martial law, right? So these are the three different circumstances. Now, UPSC here says that under circumstances on the recommendations of the governor. Now, in these following circumstances, where do we need the recommendation of the governor? Now, if you actually look into the national emergency, first of all, if you look at the national emergency under Article 353, does it require the recommendation of the governor? No. In case of national emergency, there is no recommendation of the governor required. But then, in case of state emergency under Article 356, it actually requires the recommendation of the governor, right? So, if the president on the receipt of the record of the governor of a state or otherwise. So under state emergency actually satisfies the recommendation of the governor. Okay, so the second part is satisfied here. But then what about the first part? It says that union government can actually take over. But then what does the article actually specifically says? If the president on the receipt of the record, he satisfied the situation which the government cannot be carried out in accordance with provisions, the president may by proclamation says that assumes to himself, that means assume to the president, not the union government, assume to himself any of the functions of the state or all by any powers vested in exercise by the governor. Okay, declare the powers of legislation of the state shall be exercisable, make any incidental consequences, or be it whatever. So what does UPSC say here? I mean, what does the constitution article says? It says assume to himself. And who is himself? Himself referring to the president, right? So is it the union government that, takes over the administration of the scheduled area, or is it the president that takes over the administration of the scheduled area under Article 356? Let me tell you, this is not the union government. It is actually the president who himself takes over the administration. Therefore, the second statement given by UPSC is also incorrect. Therefore, the correct answer should be D. Neither 1 nor 2 should be the answer here. Now, this is not a controversial question, but then several students have messages regarding the same. With regard to, they have a lot of confusion regarding Tripura in finding the official documents regarding the history of Tripura. But let me tell you, it is there in the High Court of Tripura. It is there in the historical documents regarding Tripura. It is there in several government sites. So, was Tripura initially a Part 3 state and became a centrally administered territory and later became a full-fledged state? So there are 3 facts here. Multiple facts can have the possibility of being wrong in UPSC. But let me tell you, if you read the High Court of Tripura history, it directly says here, it directly mentions here, the region signed a merger with the government of India. After the merger, Tripura became a Part C state. So Part C state is actually satisfied here. On the reorganization of states, which means 1956, Tripura became a union territory. So second fact is also satisfied here. And it actually became a full-fledged state in 1972. So the full-fledged state is also satisfied here. Okay. So the Part C state, the union territory, and also the full-fledged state is satisfied here. It's there in the official documents. Therefore, all 3 is the answer here. Now, what about this question? We are pretty sure regarding urea and ethanol, right? We don't have a confusion. So, it's either a doubt between only 2 or all the 3. Now, let me tell you, is nitroglycerin or can nitroglycerin can be produced through coal gasification technology? Now, can coal gasification technology can be used in the production of how many of the above? Now, let me tell you, usually, if you look in the previous year question papers, we can see that in terms of application questions, all the above has come in almost 97% of the questions. Okay. Only in the last year, what did UPSC do? In terms of the radar question, UPSC have said that narcotics or the identification of narcotics in airport and railway stations or etc. radars are not used and X-ray baggages are used. So application questions, have the possibility of going wrong from now on. So you need to be very careful. You can't just say that, how can UPSC say that not even 1% or radars are not used? UPSC can say that radars are not used because there's a significant academy behind it. They go through a lot of official records, so UPSC can say that. So here, is nitroglycerin used, is coal gasification used in the creation of nitroglycerin? Now let me tell you, what is actually nitroglycerin? Nitroglycerin is basically, a pill or an ointment which is used for chest pain and all. Now let me ask you, is coal gasification technology, which is actually producing synthetic gas from coal, used in medicines as such? Let me tell you, the answer is no. Because while cold gasification doesn't directly produce nitroglycerin, synthetic gas the synthetic gas which is actually produced from them can be used as a feedstock to produce hydrogen and other chemicals, which in turn can be used to produce glycerol. Now, the nitrification of glycerol is basically what we get, nitroglycerin. Now, let me ask you, is there a direct relation, okay? Is there a direct relation between nitroglycerin and cold gasification technology? Okay, can is used here. Can is a very broader term. We know that can is a very broader term. But then, is cold gasification technology directly used in the production of nitroglycerin? No. Cold gasification is basically used in the production of synthetic gas. And synthetic gas may be indirectly, maybe in the end process can be used in the nitroglycerin. But then, there is no direct relation between cold gasification technology and nitroglycerin. Therefore, this statement can be taken incorrect. Therefore, only 2 is the answer here. No, we cannot use a 1% logic here. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, regarding the final question, several of the answer keys, not all, some of the answer keys, of different academies have given the first statement as incorrect. Now, what does the first statement say here? With reference to direct air capture is basically, capturing of air directly from air. So what is it used? It's basically used to absorb or suck out the carbon dioxide in the air. So this is what direct air capture is directly used for. Now the first statement, it can be used as a way of carbon sequestration. Now let me tell you, if you capture the air, does it directly lead to carbon sequestration? The answer is no. But then after capturing the air, okay, we can actually use that carbon dioxide and we can actually place it under a well, or we can place it, under the ocean. Therefore, the captured air can be sequestered, right? In the long term, it can be sequestered. So therefore, can UPSC say that it cannot be used as a way of carbon sequestration? No. First of all, carbon air capture deals with carbon capture only, but then the carbon dioxide which is captured can be sequestered in the next stage. Now, since UPSC have not provided the word directly here, if UPSC have provided, it can be used directly as a way of carbon sequestration, then the statement is incorrect. Because direct capture only leads with capture and we have to sequester it later. But then since the word can is here and the word directly is not used here, it can be used as a way. Definitely, the captured air can be sequestered later. Therefore, this first statement is incorrect. Therefore, the answer is C, 1, 2 and 3 only. So now I invite Sreejay Sir to also say a few words regarding the 2025 paper and officially declare the cutoff of Civilsdaily Academy. So please, if you could.
Thank you, Sreejay. What a powerful session, right? And I think this is the kind of session that's the most important because all the other questions are
very simple.
Yeah, it's something that everybody else would have also reached the right answer. But these controversial questions are the ones that students also want discussed, right? So first of all, before going for the cutoffs, I think we are going to get a lot of backlash, but there are certain things that I wanted to clarify. First, your competition is with yourself, right? Not with anybody else. You have to keep getting better and you have to figure out this exam, right? Nothing else matters. The competition is not with top 100 ranks or top 200 ranks. All of that, it comes much later. At this point, your competition is you and you alone, right? Cutoffs are just a formality, right? We use our math, our logic, our understanding to come up with the most accurate figure. But a lot can change, right? If questions are dropped, if the controversial questions if there are different answers to the options that we have selected, a lot can change and the cutoffs can go down. So this is just a figure that should not impact your preparation in any way, right? let's go ahead and discuss the 4 or 5 points through which we have arrived at this conclusion, right? First, history, art and culture were definitely on the easier side. Second point, paper has been, some are saying it's slightly easier, some are saying it's slightly tougher. The term here is slightly, right? Depending on who you are and what your preparedness is, slightly easier or slightly tougher is being used. The thing is, a lot of rankers and a lot of veteran aspirants have found this paper to be on the easier side. They've been very comfortable. If you look at AIR 3's attempt of this paper, he has also said that Archit has also found it to be he has found it to be very comfortable, right? He has not found it to be tricky. He has not found it difficult at all, right? So their opinion in a paper like this matters a lot more than students who would be scoring 40 or 50, right? That said, coming to our students also, we are observing that the number of students clearing this year is much higher than last year and last to last year. So if, we would have been getting a lot of panic calls, that would have suggested that the cutoff is going to go lower, right? But that's not the case. Students are saying that, okay, we could see a lot of familiar questions. We could attempt a lot of things came from the courses and from the classes that we did, right? CSAT has been on the tougher side.
Yes, sir.
Based on all these 4 or 5 factors, we believe that the cutoff would be around 87. We know that it's on the higher side. What we are predicting is on the higher side, but we have to do justice with what we feel is right, rather than playing along the confirmation bias, right? All aspirants at this point in time are looking for numbers that could sort of confirm your beliefs, right? So, and that becomes very easy to play with also for a lot of other institutes. But I think that's not the approach that we would like to say. What we honestly believe is what we'll have to put it up here, right? Coming back to the original point, a lot of things can change. Last year, the cutoff was 87 after 3 questions were dropped. So 90 plus if they would have. This year, we don't have very strong basis on which questions could be dropped. But nobody can say anything deterministically. The actual keys will be released after a year. All of this is our best effort, right? Anything else, Sreejay Sir, that you would like to add?
Sir, I meant to say the same thing. Last year, we predicted around 91 to 92. But then since the 3 questions were dropped, it came to 87. So we cannot be 100% sure regarding the cutoff. UPSC might drop in case Vigus, the INSTC question. UPSC, is there a possibility for dropping that one? So we can definitely never be sure regarding the actual cutoff. But then we feel that if no questions are dropped, this would come as the right cutoff, sir.
Perfect. So regardless of cutoffs, get this out of your, this is a formality. Get it out of your heads and start preparing for mains. Mains again is at a whole new level. Students are packing a lot of innovations, right? Rankers who want to improve their rank, even they are struggling to match the innovations that, the top 100, 150 rankers are packing in. So we have a lot of free sessions lined up so that you get a feel of what's happening, what's expected from you, what is the level that you need to chase. I would honestly suggest that you don't miss any of the sessions in the mains conclave, right? So let's see you in the next session and let's hope for the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining, everyone.